Leaks for Geeks. And it's time for the leaks for the geeks, the news for the dudes.
So on to some gaming news, which that was gaming news. I don't know why I said that way.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. More game related.
Yeah. So Assassin's Creed. You know, we've talked about different Assassin's Creed games on here before, and each of them unique to their own because of a different time period they were in or different mechanics to the game. Well, Assassin's Creed is adding a new game into their series, and it's going to be called Assassin's Creed Infinity, and it is much different than the other games that they've added to this series. It is what they say in here in this article that they plan for is a game that never ends, a game that they can continually add to, and that you just keep going endlessly, hence the name Infinity. So, what cracks me up about this is that, as if, you know, the Assassin's Creed games weren't big enough, I feel like there's, you know, I've never 100%ed Assassin's Creed game. Never
it was
have,
actually one of my first thoughts. I think this is a decent idea if it's purposeful, right? I mean, because there's games that are that way. World of Warcraft. I mean, plenty of open world MMO type games that are pretty much infinity games, right? Yeah. They just update them and they do great. And especially with the technology of consoles being pretty much lined up with PCs right now, I think that's a great idea, right? We see games like that being successful, even down to I can't believe Fortnite, even down to that style game, right? That's kind of an infinity game.
Yep.
I mean, it's not
100%. And Rockstar Online.
Right. Right. So as long as they're purposeful with why they do it, I mean, I think it'll be interesting. Did they give many more details like what it's going to be like?
And that's where it gets a little exciting. It says instead of being one, just like I said earlier, isolated look into a historical period, Infinity will instead be looking into many different periods and, you know, putting them together and expanding on those and developing each one. But I think it goes on to say here, just like you were talking about, that it has an inspiration. It was inspired, by what Epic Games and Rockstar has done, mainly probably because they just make a stupid amount of money. And that's where, like Ryan was saying, it gets dangerous. If there's a purpose behind it and you're continuing, like if there's a creative purpose behind it in the fact of that we can take this and continually evolve history. I mean, think about like the cool parts of Assassin's Creed are that you can live historical events. Yeah. But if this was an Infinity, you could follow one character through many historical events and then see him pass on to another character, you know, in his lifetime. I mean, that would be pretty
Wonder if they're
insane.
Planning on doing that on like, you know, we play Warzone right now. Warzone is going to be the next map they're supposedly bringing out. The leaks are saying the whole map is kind of set in a different time period, right? Well, that makes sense because you're going to play that one map, right? And Warzone is kind of an infinity game, and I get that. But if we're talking about, you know, Assassin's Creed, which is going to be more of an open world style, right?
Yeah.
How do you have different time periods in that one world and have one character? What is your character going to have to come from one of the time periods, or do you run multiple characters? I
don't know how that works.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. A lot of questions I have there.
Does it
like
say,
if you logged off and you didn't play for a month, you came back on, your character's just dead, and you have to move on to a new one.
he starved to death because you forsaked him for a month? Okay.
Yeah, which a month is really like 3 years in the Assassin's Creed games.
Now, is it going to be single player? Are we still?
I didn't see
like a single player campaign.
It doesn't say that on here. It says.
Just leave it vague.
Yeah,
No,
they
it
leave it
can't
pretty
be,
vague.
right? You're right. I didn't think about that. My mind automatically went to
Multiplayer.
it's almost like an MMO. Like my mind said, oh, it's got to be.
If you're going to do
Like,
something like that, it almost has to be because the players make up the experience.
Unless you
kind of
released updates that were optional to download.
Well, yeah, but I mean, my mind went to more like, Grand Theft Auto, right? Online. And so my mind said, okay. But I guess with that game has never had any kind of multiplayer, has it?
Not that
there was one multiplayer mode, and I forget which one it was for, but it was like an open, kind of like a Call of Duty map where you assassinate each other.
Oh, really?
Okay. It's pretty wild. But but yeah, the last little thing they say here is rather than continuing to pass the baton from game to game, we profoundly believe that this is an opportunity for one of Ubisoft's most beloved franchises to evolve into a more integrated and collaborative manner that's less centered on studios and more focused on talent and leadership, no matter where they are within Ubisoft.
Yeah, so that's what they're saying. They're saying we're going to go, this isn't an iteration. This is the future of this game.
Yeah. Like it's going to be one game and it's going to change. And that's
so they're going to add storylines and areas to that one game. So it's got to be an open world for sure.
Yeah.
And they got to be all within one world.
It's going to be some kind of little mini like even if it's not a true MMO, it's going to be some kind of massive multiplayer.
Red Dead Redemption kind of vibe. Yeah.
And so Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Quebec, they usually take turns on development for these games. But on this one, obviously, they're putting their heads together.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a cool outtake because the guy who wrote this article says, it's going to kind of be cool to see if they mesh together well or they bump heads on the project. So,
and something to keep in mind, because I'd heard you say, well, maybe the downloads will be optional. But, when you really think about a live game that continuously changes, that's kind of what makes it more appeal. I'm only going to see this place or this thing like this one time during this time period. And then when they change it, it's over. There's no going back to it. And that makes that kind of stuff more enticing. See how I used that word that time?
Yeah. And that's what keeps people on, like you're saying, on Fortnite and stuff like crack, because they think, I got to get in play right now while these characters are here because I'm never going to see them again.
Hey, that's why I bought Rambo on Call of Duty. Better get my Rambo before they take him away.
So, don't know what you got till it's gone.
Marketing at its best.
Yep. This has been a Delirious Dads production. For more information about the show, visit our website at www.deliriousdadsgaming.com. You can also find us on facebook.com/deliriousdadsgaming, twitch.tv, and YouTube. Make sure you like and share our pages to help us grow the channel. You can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and Spotify. Please leave a rating and review if you enjoy the show. Thank you again for listening, and we hope to see you next time.